occurred there. So Arthur's getting ready to fly to Germany, knowing he's just going to drop his pack there, turn around, get on another aircraft, go to Kuwait, and get helicoptered into to Ramadi. And he also found out he was going to be taking a platoon as soon as he got there. Engineer platoon, 40 soldiers. So we had some conversations before he takes off, and one of his questions to me was, Dad, we've talked a lot about leadership over the years. Could you do just kind of a quick summary before I go do the real thing? So I thought, what a great question. Number one, leadership's pretty complex. Like, to summarize it in a couple of minutes before you're getting ready to go on a plane, that's hard. That's a hard mission to be given. And two, whatever I said, I didn't want it to be the wrong scoop to give my son. I needed to figure out, how do you narrow this down quickly to give just something for a young man to think about before he goes and leads a platoon in combat. So I was quickly going through my memory banks, and the story that immediately came to mind was the story told to me when I took my first platoon in the Marine Corps. A friend of mine, a mentor of mine, he was a Lieutenant Colonel, Tom Hemingway. I came into the Marine Corps in 1978. I'm a 78 Naval Academy grad. And Tom had been around the Marine Corps a while. He was a Citadel graduate in the mid-50s. And before I took my first platoon, he said, Art, I want to tell you a story about my first platoon so that you keep in mind what leadership is really about. Yes, sir. So he told me this story. He was a brand new Citadel graduate, had been to the basic school, and he's about to report to his first platoon. What he finds out about his platoon sergeant is he has a gunnery sergeant for his platoon sergeant. This gunnery sergeant had served in the Pacific Theater in World War II as a Marine enlisted and had landed at Guadalcanal and at Okinawa. This individual had received a battlefield commission but was reverted back to enlisted rank after the war ended. He remained in the Marine Corps, went to Korea, did the Incheon landing, was at the Chosin Reservoir, again a battlefield commission, and then reverted back in rank. And now it's the mid-50s. My friend and mentor Tom takes this new platoon with that platoon sergeant as his key subordinate, right? So Tom was wise enough and humble enough to actually go to the gunnery sergeant and say, Gunny, you probably know my background. If you don't, let me tell you real quick. I went to the Citadel and I've been to the basic school, and I've heard about your background. My question for you, Gunny, is why would you follow me? So there was a chair there. The Gunny and Lieutenant Hemingway were standing up, and the Gunny looked at Tom, my mentor and friend, and he said, Lieutenant, sit down. So like any good lieutenant, when the Gunny says sit down, Tom sat down. The Gunny said, let me tell you, there's only 3 questions I'm going to ask about you, and the rest of the Marines are going to ask about you. The first question we're going to ask about you is, do you know your job, or are you striving hard to learn it? Do you know your job, or are you striving hard to learn it? We know you don't know much. That's okay. But we're going to be watching you. Do you study? Do you ask questions? Do you listen? Do you learn quickly? Do you try things? Are you not afraid of failure so that you continue to grow as a platoon commander? That's the first question we're going to ask. Do you know your job, or are you striving hard to learn it? The second question we're going to ask is, will you make the hard but right decision even if it costs you personally? Will you make the hard but right decision even if it costs you personally? We want to know that you're a leader of integrity. We want to be convinced that if the boss has a dumb idea, that you're going to have the courage to go to that boss and at least present a counter-argument and a new option of what to do. We want to know that when it's right, you'll stand up for one of your Marines, even if it might cost you. We want to know that you're that type of a leader. So the first question is, do you know your job, or you're striving hard to learn it? The second question is, will you make the hard but right decision, even if it costs you personally? And the third question we're going to ask about you is, do you care as much about us as you care about yourself? Do you care as much about us as you care about yourself? Now, when Tom told me that story, he summarized it with 3 C's. He said, those are the 3 C's of leadership: competence, courage, and compassion. And he told me, don't forget it. So I passed that